My name is Pinchas Gutter, and I am a Holocaust survivor.
I am Dan Gutter, and I am Pinchas Gutter's grandson.
This is our Holocaust story. My name is Pinchas Gutter, once again, and I was born in Łódź in 1932. When the war broke out, I was turning 8 years old. I then spent more than 2.5 years in the Warsaw ghetto. I was also in the ghetto, and I participated in the uprising on the 19th of April, Erev Pesach of 1943. I was then, together with my family, my father, my mother, and my twin sister, caught in a bunker in the first week of May. So we were about 3 weeks in the bunker, hiding from the Germans while the uprising was going on. And I was involved in the sense that I was made a goniec. A goniec in Polish means a runner. I was supposed to run between the different bunkers and the fighters and so forth and so on. And of course, that didn't happen. So I finished just being in the bunker. And what I remember most is that when they found us in the first week of May, and we came out, there were these paratroopers with their machine guns on their breasts, and they shouted, "Hände hoch, nicht schießen. Keep your arms up, don't shoot." And I was very proud. They're scared of us. They took us to the Umschlagplatz. They then put us in the cattle cars, and they took us to Majdanek, where both my parents and my twin sister were murdered on the day we arrived. And I survived, and I went through another 5 concentration camps, and eventually I was liberated after a death march in Czechoslovakia and Theresienstadt on the 8th of May 1945. We were sleeping on bunks in the Hamburg Kaserne in Theresienstadt after we arrived, about 10 days before we arrived from a death march. And suddenly there was a shouting, "We are free, we are free." The Nazis disappeared, and we all ran out. And then we saw the Russian troops going through. They were mostly infantry, and they were chasing out the Germans out of Czechoslovakia. The Czechs and the Russians were chasing them out. And there were women and children and old men with prams and little babies and infants. And we felt sorry for them, despite the fact that for 5 years, they were killing us and murdering us. We personally, when we saw people that are, being terrorized and suffering, we felt sorry for them, and so did my other kids. We were still children. I was turning 13 at that time, and we were kind of like, feeling sorry for these people. It is terribly important to know what happened, but it's also terribly important to know what is happening now, and to learn what history teaches us and why what is happening now, and also to educate the youngsters. And I'm talking about 8 and 9 years old. I speak to many people, universities and scholars and professors and God knows what. I mean, I've been speaking to generals and prison guards and really over the last 20 odd years, I've addressed everybody. And the most important thing I finish off with is by saying, I'm telling you this because I don't want this to happen again. And you must learn. You must make the world a better place. And the only way you can do it is by educating people to the extent that they understand what happened, what is happening, and what shouldn't happen. That's the only way that you can teach people that these type of iniquities should not continue happening. And that's through education. And you have to get them when they are very young and teach them. And that is why it's so important for Holocaust survivors, all of us. This is why we speak about it. This is why we put ourselves through the mangle again. You know, we kind of continue living this through. To me, when I tell my story, I can actually see everything. I watch people, dead people, dying in the streets of the Warsaw ghetto by the hundreds, not by the hundreds, but sometimes by the thousand. The Chevra Kadisha, the Jewish cemetery organization, didn't have enough wooden carts to take everybody. So they started catching people. The police started, Jewish police started catching people, putting them into you know, any kind of conveyance, just like you collect rubbish in the streets. Now, how can you live this through without not wanting to impart some of this thing, not everything, but some of it, the horror that you went through, and you don't want it to happen to anybody. And it doesn't matter what religion, what culture, what color. It doesn't really matter. We all believe there's only one God. We believe in one God, all of us. The only thing is that we use different things to pray to. We use a crescent, we use a cross, we use a Magen David, and we use all kinds of fixtures to try. But they only kind of show, you know, our devotions. They're not really the God is only one. We are all the same. Our bodies are the same way. We have got the same blood. We don't have any kind of special blood, blue blood, like the kings used to have. And we are all the same human beings. And the important thing is not us just to tolerate, but to accept. Accept everybody as yourself. And that is going to be the salvation of the world. When I speak to an audience, I tell them that I give them a present. The present is a torch like the Olympic torch, except my torch, the Olympic torch has only got one flame. My torch has got more than one flame. It's got, and I'll just give them the first 5. No religious discrimination, no racial discrimination, no homophobia, no xenophobia, and above all, no hatred. Hatred is vicious, it's pernicious, it brings vengeance. And I give them this, and I say, take these flames and spread them, and let the world lighten up, like the sun wakes us up every morning, possibly, and wakes us up. Make the world a light place, a place of light, where all these things, you know, these things disappear, and light up the world and make the world a better place.
Hearing my grandfather tell his story and speak about his experience is always a powerful thing, not just imagining what it would have been like to live through that experience and that pain and the suffering and the loss, but also just hearing him be able to tell the story time and time again, and to communicate it so eloquently and with such passion. And it's powerful on so many levels, and you know, has impacted me in so many ways to be strong, to be compassionate, to be understanding, and more than anything, and this is what I hope sharing his story will help future generations to understand, is to see what fear and hatred leads to, and hopefully by sharing the story it will help prevent it from ever happening again. First felt the true weight of my grandfather's story and his experience when I was 15 or 16 years old, and he had gone back to Poland for the first time, and gone with my parents, my aunts, my uncles, and Stephen Smith, who I believe at the time was involved in the Holocaust Museum in London. And they filmed a documentary of his experience and of his story. And it was watching that documentary, in which he shares more than I had ever heard, and in a more personal way than I'd ever heard, and getting to see the reaction of my parents and other family members when it really hit me. And it had never hit me like that before. I don't think I knew much before that. And I just remember we all watched it together as a family, and my grandfather at the end of the film asked me what I thought, and I tried to respond, but I just broke down and just sort of lost it for a second. And I'll never forget that moment. That was when it really, became real. Join me and make a pledge to remember.